don't panic, because if I can't give you the answer, I promise I can get you the answer. I know the people who have the answers that I don't have. So we'll get there on that. I hope we get some numbers in today. You know, the videos, once they hit YouTube, because as soon as we finish recording here, the video will go straight to YouTube. And the numbers that we've been getting on the YouTube videos have been really good. We've been averaging up to around about 8,000 views per webinar, which I think is amazing. It's weird to think that you're talking to that number of people overall. Imagine if they were all in the one room together. That would be so cool. So yeah, we'll put it straight up onto YouTube. And as I say later in the webinar, YouTube is the best learning resource that you're going to get for videos and stuff. The stuff that Kai's put out for the official Reillusion YouTube videos are outstanding. That's how I learned to use Cartoon Animator, was watching Kai do the tutorials. That's how I learned. So between that, hey Andrew, Mr. Goulding, but yeah, between the YouTube tutorials and the Cartoon Animator users Facebook group, it's the best resource that you've got that's out there. See, the good thing about the Cartoon Animator users Facebook group that's run by Chris Meyer White, the best thing about that is you've got over 4,000 users, from animators, illustrators, effects guys, voice guys, music guys, artists. We've got so many people in there from all across the world who are all devoted to this one piece of software in one group, which means at any time of the day or night, the fastest way for you to get an answer on anything you want to know is to put it on the Cartoon Animator users Facebook group, and I guarantee you will get an answer almost within minutes. It's amazing how fast the guys are on there. And plus you get a variety of opinions. I mean, today I'm going to tell you my way of doing things, okay? But, you know, you get on that page and you're going to get 3 or 4 different opinions of people's ways of doing things. And that's really the way to go. You want to take everything on board and then work stuff out for yourself. So we have not long to go. I'm really excited about today. Yeah, no, you're right, Tanya, there are. We've got some crazy talented people. The stuff that, look, for me, Declan Walsh is my hero. I absolutely love that guy. Even the fact that I get to just know Declan Walsh and be able to talk to him in the real world and consider him one of my friends spins me out, because that guy to me is like, he's a rock god. He really is. He's like a rock god of the animation world. He's the nicest guy. He really is. Oh, before we go live, here's a little bit of insight for you guys. You know, we're having, I've been talking about the Motion Comics mini event that's coming up starting September 4th. I want you guys to get behind this. I'm running this event. The idea is that we're giving you a chance to put all the stuff that you've learned with Cartoon Animator into play. Okay, you've got a chance to win thousands of DA points. I want you to get in there, get behind this. It's going to be a heap of fun. And if it's a success, hopefully Reillusion will let me run more of these little mini events with a chance for you to showcase your work, give you a reason to animate, win DA points that you can spend in the marketplace. So please, please, please get behind this event. I've got more information coming this week. As you know, the idea of I was just reading the messages. See, this is why I don't have chat on during the webinars, because I'm constantly doing that. The idea of the Motion Comic event, right? I'll give you a quick insight now. You're going to be given a topic. You're going to be given 5 animated effects that Declan has created specifically for this that you can download for free. You'll have 2 weeks to create a motion comic on that theme using those 5 effects. Submit it for your chance to win. I've put together a motion comic myself, which I will be publishing very shortly, just to give you an idea of what you can do. But get behind this event, because it's going to be, there he is. It's going to be really
cool. You scared me, man.
It's all right. I stopped sharing.
There he is.
I stopped sharing my screen. You know, if you pull your visor down a little bit further, you can totally be in Star Trek. That'd be cool. Yeah, I stopped sharing my screen so that I could read my chat. But as you know, I disable my chat during the webinar because I find it completely distracting. What do you? Would
it be weird if I did the whole webinar like this?
It would. Mind you, you've done it with the lopsided
incognito mode
headphones, so why not? Oh, and how are you today?
Doing fantastic.
Doing good?
Yeah.
Ready to
I
just sit back and relax while I do the heavy lifting for the first hour, and then you can come in and join me?
You bet. It's kind of ironic you mentioned heavy lifting because I was just helping one of my good friends move all afternoon. So I'm a little bit
Oh, really?
sore. So I can just sit back and eat some blueberries and be like,
well, it's now
good job,
nearly 10 o'clock for me. I've been up since 8 o'clock this morning doing a quick dry run rehearsal of the webinar, make sure that I've got everything, all the files set up and everything's right to go. So yeah, no, I'm pretty pumped. I'm really excited about this one.
Yeah, me too. I think most of the topics we're covering today are like we said, all the topics that people have demanded the most or asked questions about the most. So a lot of people are going to be pretty happy with the way that I think you resolve all their issues here.
Well, yeah, the good thing is, you know what I was really impressed about is the fact that, as I was just saying to everybody, the questions that came in were questions about how to animate rather than I can't get this working or I don't know how to work that. So it means that people are getting the hang of working the software, which is terrific. They just want to know, how do I get the best results out of animating? So everything that I'm covering today is creative rather than technical. And that's my field. Like, if you want to get into all the technical side of things, you go to David Arundel. He's your man for that. He's the tech whiz. Whereas I'm just much more into the creative side of things. And yeah, I want to make sure that I try and touch on stuff that we haven't done before. You know what I mean? Because the two most, I'll cover this later, but the two most popular questions that were asked when we asked people to submit questions were exactly what we covered in the first two webinars. That was frustrating. It was like, go back and watch the first two, questions are answered there. So I don't want to do that. I don't want to just be repetitive. I want to try and do new stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I've got all my little papers here that are all set out.
With your notes, little sticky notes.
Yeah, just in case I lose my way or get sidetracked or something like that. But yeah, no, I'm keen to go. I'm keen to go. Oh, I've only got a few minutes.
I got my blueberries here.
All I have for the next 2 hours, a glass of water. That's all. It's too early in the morning for
anything. Wow.
Too early. It's only 10 o'clock in the morning. It's a bit early in the morning for anything else. Oh, hey, Patty. Hi, Patty.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? Actually, so what time would it be in America at the moment? What are they, 13 hours behind me, I think?
Right now, it is local time. It is 5 p.m. on August 22nd.
Nice. Oh, that's right, because I'm in the future. I always forget that I'm in the future, which always freaks me out, because when it says, oh, the webinar's on the 22nd, I get to the 22nd and I panic, and I always check it with Sophia and go, I'm right, aren't I? It's tomorrow for me. I'm just worried that I'm going to get this email going, the webinar started 20 minutes ago and you're not in here. I always worry about that.
Yeah,
I do.
Luckily, that's never happened. I'm pretty cognizant of the time differences since I travel a bit. So
yeah. Oh, there we go. Everybody's putting their times in. Whoa, look at Donald. It's 1 a.m. for him and he's still in with us. Thank you, Donald.
No, 1 a.m. must be Africa somewhere, Middle East.
Yeah, it doesn't say. And 9 a.m. in Japan. Beautiful. Oh, you've got the same little heater air conditioner that I have behind you there on the floor.
A little dice in there.
Hey, what's your light up panel behind you there? What's?
Oh, that's just some Philips ambient lighting stuff.
Oh, right. I thought it was. You know what I thought it was? I thought it was a terrarium. I thought it was like a snake enclosure or something. It looked like a glass tank with a heat lamp in. I thought, oh, he bought himself a snake or something.
I use that to set the mood.
I got a little bit excited. Yeah, I wouldn't mind doing that. Putting up some backdrops. I have my on-air sign. Actually, you know what I do have? That's very exciting. I just scored my certificate for a cartoon animator trainer, which I'm going to get up on the wall very shortly. I've got to try and find a spot for it, which I'm extremely proud of. I've been training for a long time, and only recently I realized that was even a thing. So I wrote to him, where's mine? So that arrived for me this week, which was exciting. So apparently now I'm official. It's got Charles's initial, his little signature on there. So I'm now.
That's awesome.
Which is good.
I don't even have one of those.
So, well, yeah, how long have you been doing? You've probably been here before they were even invented.
Yeah.
So do I start sharing my screen? Like, we're about 2 minutes away. Do I?
It looks like I'm at 6 o'clock. I'm at 6 o'clock here. What are you? Oh,
9:58. It's 2 seconds. Okay. So
Australia, everything's a little slower, hey?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I'll start sharing my screen, right?
Sure, yeah.
Because that's the first little. That's the
We're
first.
already broadcasting and recording, so I think we can pretty
Oh,
much
you
just.
are? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Well, they said I saw the notification that we're broadcasting about 10 minutes ago, actually. So
Oh, I didn't know. We can get started. Usually, you tell
we'll
me when
have
you're
all
going
of
to start.
all of our little banter will be included in the final YouTube video, unless they cut
Sorry,
it out.
I didn't know. Usually, you tell me when you're going to start. All right, kick it off then.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's get started. Yeah. Hey, everyone that hasn't heard us yapping on for the last 15 minutes or so. My name is Kai, and this is Gary. We're on opposite ends of the world. I'm up here in Canada. He's down there in Australia. And we're both here to present some of the most asked questions about Cartoon Animator. We reached out to you guys via various methods, and these are the most requested solutions that we got from you guys, requests, and however I can phrase that properly. Too many blueberries. Anyways, we're going to be kind of going through this whole thing here, and Gary's going to be presenting a live demo, providing solutions for your most asked question. That's probably how I should say it. I just wanted to say hi to everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We're super psyched to have you guys all here with us today. And we have a couple things to go through really quick. First, a couple of promotional things. I'm just going to share my screen. So Gary, you'll be able to restore your screen a little bit later on.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to share mine. I'll share the screen over here. A couple things to go through first. We have a big event going on with our Reallusion 23rd anniversary. So you can see up here, if you go to the Reallusion site, you can click up here. There's the 23rd anniversary sales. We've been around for quite a while, 23 years. That's the year 2000, way back in the day. And we've got a bunch of stuff here in the software store. I didn't need to click on the software store, but if you go over here back to the content store, to our stores and content store, we have the same anniversary sale here. Just enter in the RL23 Annie code and save up to 60% for a whole bunch of stuff here. And as always, you want to make sure you check in the weekly special and the freebie. This week's freebie here is a handshake. Now, this is a 3D motion from ActorCore, but you can also utilize this in 2D as well by importing from iClone to Cartoon Animator. We can discuss that more a little bit later if you guys want. I'll close this one down. Back here, and the weekly special. I believe the weekly special is a Cartoon Animator one. Yeah, Great Minds of Science right here. You can see $2 from 29 bucks. So pick it up for like basically the price of half of a latte. It's a lot of good stuff, a lot of good characters in here, and animations and props you can throw into your scene. Make sure you check that out in the content store. And we also have, of course, if you're a student or a teacher, highly recommend checking out our Global Training Center. I'm going to throw this link into the chat window for you guys. So if you are a student or you have a student ID, or you have, make sure everyone can see that here. Everyone, here we go. If you're a student, a teacher, have access to a student ID or whatever, apply for your 60% discount here from the education site from our Global Training Center, it's called. If you're a teacher and you're interested in getting your students involved in the Cartoon Animator world, you can also apply for free semester licenses as well, just to kind of get things tested out. And I think that's really about all I wanted to talk about in terms of the education. One final thing, we are going to be sending out a survey at the end of today's webinar. So if you have any questions, any comments, any suggestions, we recommend filling out that survey for us, and we'll give you a 10% discount for the content store as a reward for filling out that survey. We really value your feedback. We want to create more relevant and more focused webinars for you guys and tutorials in the future. Your feedback is always welcome. And Gary also has the, you curate the Facebook page for Cartoon Animator. So if you use Facebook, make sure you check out that page. And he'll probably talk about that a little bit later on. But we also are broadcasting this on YouTube. But for those of you who are watching on YouTube, we won't be answering questions from the YouTube chat. We'll only be answering questions from the Zoom panel. And like we mentioned earlier, for those of you who just arrived, we are going to have a Q&A session at the end of today's webinar. So any questions you have, we'll have an hour-long Q&A session. So we're going to limit it to an hour this time. Apologies, because last time we had basically a record-breaking 2-hour Q&A where we just answered questions for 2 hours straight. And we actually both have a meeting after this about Cartoon Animator 5.2, which Garry mentioned earlier. So yeah, we'll keep it down to an hour this time. And yeah, put your questions in the Q&A window. And I think, Garry, you mentioned you're going to disable the chat for this one. Okay, so put your questions in the Q&A window. I think I can go through some of the questions, and but we'll do the questions of Q&A after Garry's presentation here. So I know Gary's all super psyched to go. I can see you just like, oh, let's go, man. So yeah, I'm going to just hand over the reins to Garry, and I think he's going to just go ahead with the webinar, the live presentation, your most answered or most requested questions. Okay. So take it away, man.
Okay. G'day, I'm Garry Pye, and this is our Ask a Pro webinar. This time around, we're going to do things a little bit differently to how we've done the previous webinars. This webinar is a little less structured. It's a little less formal. We've asked you to send in your questions about what you want to know about using Cartoon Animator, and we're going to try and help you answer those. We've taken the most commonly asked questions that you guys submitted, and we've structured the webinar around that. We're going to show you some videos. I'm going to show you some project files, and then at the end, we're going to have a Q&A. Now, if your question doesn't get answered today, don't panic. There are a lot of ways that you can get answers to your question. To begin with, if it's a technical question, you can write to support@reallusion.com to get answers. We've got the Reallusion forums that has hundreds of discussions on all different topics so that you can get answers from there. There are the YouTube official Reallusion tutorials, which is the way I learned how to use Cartoon Animator. So get on there and watch all those. Then we've got the Cartoon Animator users Facebook group, where we have over 4,000 animators, illustrators, all Cartoon Animator users in there from all around the world who will answer your questions almost in real time. Finally, if you don't get the answers to your questions, then send me an email to garrypye@reallusion.com, which is Garry with a double R, Pye, P-Y-E, @reallusion.com. And I'll try and hook you up with somebody who can get you the answers that you want. Now, before we get started, I need to give you my disclaimer. I never claim that my way is the easiest way, the best way, the fast way, or the only way. Okay, what I can tell you is my way works. There are a number of different solutions to any problem that you have, which is one of the great things about Cartoon Animator. There's plenty of different ways to be able to resolve your issues. There's going to be a lot of other pros who are watching in the webinar today who might be able to give you other advice as we're talking. Even they might be able to give you other advice in the chat that will be able to help you out. Take what they can teach you, take what I can teach you, and take what you can learn in all the other resources, put it all together, and you're going to be able to work all this out. Finally, I never claim to know everything about Cartoon Animator. Okay, I've been working with this software now for about 12 years, and I have a pretty good grasp on it. But I'm still learning new stuff all day, every day, the same as everybody else. So if you ask a question today and I can't answer it, don't worry. We will get you the answers. Now, at the end of the webinar, as I said, we'll have a Q&A where you'll be able to ask questions, and we'll get stuck in and try and answer as many as we can. I would rather try and spend the time that we have going over new topics that we haven't discussed before. Two topics that came in that were commonly asked, the two most popular questions. Number one was, how do I animate with Cartoon Animator? That question is so broad that we couldn't even attempt to answer it. So go back and watch webinar number 1, which is how to start your animation journey with Cartoon Animator. There's plenty of information there that's going to help you. The second most common question that was asked is, how do I rig an actor for Cartoon Animator? Again, go back and watch webinar number 2, which is called how to rig an actor for Cartoon Animator 5. That's going to give you all the information you need there, step by step in a lengthy webinar, Plus, you can download the free written tutorial that I've written that takes you through step by step and shows you how to do that. So let's get started. Let's get into the first question that I was asked, which is, what is the best process for creating an animation and in which order do you work? Now, in order to show you this, what I've done is I have a little video here that I'm going to play for you, and it only goes for 12 seconds. It's only short, but then I'm going to take you through my checklist that I use to create an animation. So watch this and then we'll go through it.
Well, howdy. How y'all doing? My name's Players, and I am pleased to meet you.
Okay, nice and easy, simple animation, but whether it's a short animation like that only goes for, 16 seconds, or whether it's an animation that goes for 3 minutes, it doesn't matter. I still use the same checklist when I animate. First thing I do is to set up my scene. So I'll set up my background and my actors, put everything into place, layer everything up with the Z-axis value so I know where everything sits. Then what I do is I make a duplicate, a copy of that, so that I'll animate on that one. And on the first one, I just put it aside so that if I need to come back to the very beginning with no keyframes, with nothing touched, I can come back to it. The next thing I do is I put in my speech, my audio, because I like to lip sync at this point while my actors aren't moving. It means that I can zoom in on the screen, I can blow up the face so that it's nice and large and I can see the mouth, and I can do my lip syncing without the character moving around and the head wobbling everywhere. It's important to go in and learn manual lip syncing if you want to do lip syncing, like on a video like that, where the character is up close to the screen and they're doing a little monologue. If your character's off in the distance and they're only small, or if they're just doing a short burst of speech, use the auto lip syncing that comes with Cartoon Animator, which does a great job. But if you really want to get your characters to life properly, learn manual lip syncing. Next, I add in my motions and I apply my transform to my character, which means I'll put in my motions like a walk cycle or something like that. And then if my character moves from the left-hand side to the right-hand side of the screen, then I'll block out the basic movements of where they're going to go. Now, as far as motions are concerned, that's one of the #1 features of Cartoon Animator, the ability to take hundreds and hundreds of professional smooth animations, drop them onto a character and get instant results. I tend to only really use the walk cycle and the run cycle, even though I have every single motion that's available. I have them all because I find them wonderfully inspiring. And sometimes when I want to put just a quick video together, they're great to drag and drop. But the next thing that I do is to keyframe all my movements. When I animate a character, I like to keyframe it because I like to animate, right? With that animation there of Claire when she's animating and she's pointing to herself and she's looking around the room, I like to keyframe all that motion so that I'll act it out first in front of the camera, and then I'll look at it and I'll work out where her head turns and all that sort of thing as she's animating. So it helps me bring the character to life and put my own little touches into it. The next thing I do is 360 head movement. So you're working out where the character's head's going to turn around in relation to the speech that they're doing. Then we add in the blinking. The blinking to me is one of the most important parts of character animation because it starts to bring your character to life instead of that dead stare that they do. I use 4 frames in between open and close for blinking, and I'm always aware of using blinking as a pause. So when you're talking, all of a sudden you might pause, blink, keep talking, or if I look away and look back again, I'll do a blink as I look away, a blink as I look back. Blinking really just starts to breathe life into your characters. Next, I add in my hand gestures. No real reason for happening at this point. It's just what I do. That's just where I put in my hand gestures. I do that at the end. Then I do my camera movement. Now, I noticed that a lot of guys out there using Cartoon Animator are producing some fantastic work, but they're forgetting about using their camera movement. The camera is just as important as any actor in your animation. Okay, so use your pan, your zoom, your rotate. Start to keep moving the camera around so that it keeps the audience engaged. That's something that's important. Finally, I export my clip And then I do all my post-production of things like music and sound effects. I use Pinnacle to do that. There's plenty of other software out there. You can use Vegas Pro. There's lots of software that can do it. That's the process that I do for my cartoons. Now, regardless of how long the cartoon is, that's the same process that I use every time. So I hope that answers that question. The next question, moving straight on, I don't want to waste time. The next question, how do you get two scenes to blend or fade together? The short answer to this one is I don't. I don't blend scenes together in Cartoon Animator. I don't, if I have camera cuts and things like that, I don't do it in Cartoon Animator. I do it in all separate projects, then I export them, and then I link them all together and string them all together as a final video in post-production. Again, I'm just going to show you a quick video of an ad that I did for Cartoon Animator 4, which I think is a really good example of everything that we've talked about up until this point. So watch this, pay attention to the camera cuts, and then I'll talk through this one. Here we go.
In a world where people like to make up cartoons, you need you a copy of the Cartoon Animator, and I'm talking about a legal, legit copy. That's the kind that you got to pay the money for and buy yourself. You use them hack copies, you get viruses and you spread corona germs everywhere. You don't want that mess. Just go on and pony up, buy you a legit copy, a Cartoon Animator, and you can create a whole shooting match world that you want to create. You got an ugly wife? Boom, get you a Cartoon Animator. You can have you a purty woman for your wife. You got you a bad job? Boom, get you a copy of Cartoon Animator. You have you the best paying job in the world. Create all kinds of bank accounts. Make up all kinds of gold bars in your cartoon. You become part of you become like God almost. You create your own world. You become a creator.
Okay, so in that animation, you'll see, if you go back and watch it later on, you'll see at around about the 16-second mark, there's a camera cut. We move on to the next thing. So every single part of that cartoon, every time you see a camera cut, it's a separate project. It's a lot easier to do it this way. You don't want to work on an animation that runs for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, only to find that you've got the entire thing in Cartoon Animator. It's going to weigh down your computer power. If you've got a mistake happen, you're going to blow the whole project. It's better to do it in little chunks and then do your editing. Don't do it all in one place. So that's the answer to that question. Now, the next question, I love this question. This is my favorite question of the webinar. How do you make two actors hug? On screen, you'll see my two actors. We've got Susan and Martin. And you guys wanted to know, it was a really common question. You guys wanted to know, how do I get them to hug? And it's a great question because, I'm just going to move that. It's a great question because Cartoon Animator works with a puppet system of characters, a cutout puppet system. So essentially you're working with two flat characters that can walk in front of each other or behind each other. But how do we get them to interact so that they actually have their arms around each other? Have a look at this little animation in this project that I've got set up, okay? And when we play it, you'll see that Susan and Martin hug. Their arms go around each other. So she has an arm in front of him and behind him. He has an arm in front of her and behind her. That's a little bit tricky to do. So what I want to do, I want to actually do this project with you and do it in real time and show you how I would do it. So once we open up our project, and we've got our two characters here, you'll notice to start with that one of the things that I do when I set up a project that really helps me, when I go over to my scene list here, you've got Martin and Susan, and I put their Z-axis value at the end of their name so that I can look at that and instantly see who's in front of who. I do this with all my props, all my characters. So right now, Martin's on a Z-axis of 1, there's his Z-axis there, which means he will move in front of Susan. If his Z-axis was -1, he will move behind Susan. So the larger the Z-axis value, the closer to camera you are, the lower the Z-axis value, the further away you are from the camera. And what we want to do is to get these characters to hug. So let's open up our timeline. Let's select our two characters, Martin and Susan, and open their motion tracks. Let's start with Susan. And what we're going to do is we're going to block out all the basic movements of the character first, and then later we're going to, at the very tail end, we'll worry about merging the characters together. First thing that I would do is to go to about frame 10, and I would hit a full body key. I've got so many windows moving around here. Here we go. And I would hit a full body key. You've got the choice of either full body or selected parts. If you choose full body, that means that at that keyframe there, it's put a keyframe in for every single body part by every bone in your character. That's the position that it will hold at that keyframe. So from frame 0 to 10, nothing happens. And the reason that I do that is that later on in post-production, I've got that 10 frame lead in if I want to do scene transitions and things like that. Had I have moved Susan's arm at frame 10 to be up there like that, that means that from frame 0 to frame 10, she's going to move from that position to that position with Cartoon Animator filling in all the in-between frames. It's one of the great things about Cartoon Animator is that it will fill in all the in-betweens for you. You don't have to go doing them all yourself. It does all the heavy lifting for you there, which is fantastic. So starting from frame 10, we want the characters to lean in together so that they can hug. So let's move forward on our timeline to where we want it to happen. Let's grab Susan, block out her movement. She's going to just come in for the hug like that. Then we're going to go over to Martin at the same frame 25. He's going to move in and he's coming in for the hug at the same time as well. Now, as I said, we want to block out all our movements now. So that means we want to put our hands where they're going to rest at this time. Martin's right hand will go up on Susan's shoulder, but as you can see, it's still on the wrong side of Susan. Don't panic. We're only blocking out the movements. We're going to fix that later. His other hand will go onto Susan's waist because Martin is a gentleman. Now let's go across to Susan at frame 25. Let's take Susan's left arm and it will go up onto Martin's shoulder. But again, when we're finished, it will be in front of Martin, and her other arm will go behind him and in a very cheeky fashion will just rest on his bottom like that. Now, we've blocked out our basic movement of the bodies. Don't forget to scrub through your animation. Okay, there we go. They're coming in for the hug. Don't forget to scrub through your animation as you go to make sure that everything's working the way it was. You don't want to get to frame 3000 and go, oh, I've made a mistake. I've got to go back to the beginning. At this point here, let's say, for instance, we wanted to get their heads to turn. We want them to blink. Make sure that you do all of this, including your hand gestures, before we start worrying about the overlapping of the characters. If we wanted to get the characters' heads to turn, we just open our face key editor and we can use the gizmo to rotate the head like that. We can get the other head to come down like that. Let's say as they come in for the hug, Martin wants to close his eyes. At that point, select the eyes, just change the sprites over. He's going to close his eyes. A couple of seconds later, as Susan comes in for the hug, she's going to do the same. She's going to close her eyes like that. Now we've got our basic animation blocked out and it looks like this. Sorry, I've got so many windows open. I have to close that. Here we go. So now we've got our animation and it's blocked out like that. The characters come in for a hug. But what we need to do is to get the characters to overlap. And to do this, let's go back to frame 0. To do this, it's basically a sleight of hand magic trick. It's an in-camera magic trick using multiple characters where we only want to see the parts of the character that needs to be seen. So we're going to make a duplicate of Susan to begin with. Because we've made the duplicate of Susan after we've added all of our animation, when we play the animation, we're not going to see anything. It looks exactly the same. But if we put that second copy of Susan to the side, you'll see we've got 2 copies of Susan doing exactly the same thing. And what we want to do is to make sure that that second Susan there is on a higher Z-axis value than Martin, because we want her in front. So let's raise her Z-axis up to 2. Now, Susan, 1 copy, will move in front of Martin. The other copy will move behind Martin. The copy that's in front, we want to make sure that all we see of this character are the parts that we need visible. And that is just her left arm. So we're going to open up the sprites for this character. We're going to take her face, make it 0 opacity so it disappears. We'll take her neck, make it disappear. The torso, all the parts that we don't want to see. So all we really want to leave is that left arm. Now, we can leave it there because the legs don't get affected by anything. You'll see now what we've got are 2 copies of Susan. One that's the full copy that's at the back, the one with just the arm that's at the front. And now when we scroll through the animation, Susan's arm is in front of Martin while her other arm is behind Martin. So we're halfway there. Go back to the first frame. Now we're going to do exactly the same thing, same process with Martin. Let's make a duplicate of Martin. But this time, we're going to send this one to the back. So we're going to make it -1. Go up there. So again, we've got 2 copies of Martin that you can see. One's in front and one's behind. The Martin that's in front, all we need to do is to make sure that that arm that's at the back is not visible. So let's go into the sprite editor. Let's pick that right arm, make it invisible. The right hand, make it invisible. When we scroll through now, as you can see, their arms go around each other and you create the hug. That's it. That's all there is to it. It's that simple. It's just a sleight of hand magic trick, as I said. So that answers that question for you. The next question is a similar question to that. And I think it's important that we address this and go through it with a project file as well, because in my mind, repetition is the key to learning. This project is similar, but different. The question is, how can I make my actor have one hand on the table and one hand under the table? It's exactly the same process as what we just went through there, in that we're going to do the sleight of hand magic trick, okay? But it's a little bit different. Here we go. Wait for the project to open. This time around, we're using Jimmy Talent. And he's sitting at the table behind his desk, behind the computer. And when we play the animation, nice and simple, he's going to raise his hand, put it on the table, raise the other hand, wiggle his fingers, press the keyboard, and done. When you look at it, it seems like a really easy animation, but it can be tricky to work out if everybody here is a flat 2-dimensional object, just exactly how do I get him so that he's sitting behind the desk, his hand's on top of the desk, his hand needs to be behind the laptop, and then in front of the laptop. There's a lot to think about and a lot to break down. So let's go through, and I'll show you this project as well, and we'll work out exactly how to do that. Here we go. Right till it opens up. When it opens up, first thing I'm going to do is we're going to take the table and we're going to reduce its opacity to about 50%, just so that I can see what's going on behind the table. Now we've got Jimmy Talent at Z1, Z-axis value of 1, the computer table at a Z-axis value of 2, meaning that it's in front of Jimmy. Let's open up the timeline. Get rid of the table, click on Jimmy to open him up and open up his motion track. Let's go back to frame 1. Okay, we're at frame 1. What we want to do here, let's start by moving along to frame 10, like I said before, and just add in a full body keyframe so that nothing happens in the first 10 frames. We can use that for post-production for a lead-in time. What we want to do, first of all, is to get that hand up onto the table. Let's move forward. When I animate, when I try to work out my timing for animation, what I try to do is I'll act it out while the timeline's running, then pause it to see where it lands. So I'll actually do the motion. So starting from frame 10 here, we know he's going to put his hand on the desk, right? So I'll start it and he'll put his hand on the desk. And we end up at around about frame 45. I tend to animate, I'll try and put my keyframes in on the 5s, 5, 10, 15, 20. The reason that I do this is because when I've got a really big animation going and I've got thousands of frames, I can have literally thousands of keyframes that take up the whole screen. I just find if I start by animating on the 5s, it's nice and neat and tidy, because eventually at the end of the animation, they're everywhere. So let's set a full body keyframe here and work out that when he raises his hand and puts it on the table, that's where it's going to end up, which means that at about the halfway mark, roughly, his hand needs to be up here because he's going to raise it up and put it on the table. So when we scrub through that, he's going to raise it up and put it on the table. Again, don't worry about hand gestures. Don't worry about layering. Just worry about blocking out your motions. It's the first part. Now, here's an interesting point too. If you're going to keyframe all your motions yourself, then try to make your character less robotic. When he puts his arm up on the table, he's not going to just do it like that. When you put your arm up on the table, this is why I act it out in front of the camera when I'm doing it. When he lifts his arm up, you might find that the shoulder will raise, the torso will move, the head, the neck, everything. The movement of one body part tends to react with movements on all the other body parts. So as his arm comes up, I might, for instance, just take his arm up just that little tiny bit, take his torso, push it forward just a little bit, and then when he comes back down, drop that arm down just a little bit, bring the torso back just a little bit, you end up with this. It's just a little bit more fluid. I would also turn the head and neck normally when I do this. I'm not going to do this for this particular project because you saw it in the last one, how I did that. But that's the sort of thing that I do. He's put his hand on the desk. We don't want the other hand to go up straight away because that's going to look, again, robotic. We want to have a bit of a pause in between. Let's play it. Puts his hand on the desk, have a bit of a pause. There we go, call it at around about 70. Put in our set key. That means nothing's going to happen during this time. From here, we now want him to raise his other hand, wiggle his fingers, put it down on the keyboard. Play it through again. Puts his hand up, puts it down, raises his hand. Oh, I forgot that he hasn't raised his hand yet. Puts his hand down, pause, raise his hand up. At around about 90, let's bring that hand up. By moving the hand first, we'll automatically put in that full body keyframe for you as well. You can either hit set key, or once you move the body part, it's going to put in the full body keyframe for you. Now that he has his hand raised up, here's another good point. If you decide, see that little red dot there? That is your full body keyframe. If you decide that the timing's not quite right, like for me, when I watch that, his hand comes up just a little bit slow. Again, robotic. If you grab that keyframe, hold it down and slide it back, that's going to have a shorter number of keyframes between that keyframe and that keyframe. You're going to have a shorter number of frames. Therefore, the animation will move faster. His hand will move up faster. I think that's good. We want him to hold his hand up in position. Let's say about there. Let's check that. Hand will come up because that's where he's going to wiggle his fingers. And then he's going to drop his hand down onto the keyboard. So we need to work out where is our finishing position for the hand, which will be around about there. Let's play the animation through. So all we're doing at the moment is just blocking out movement, right? Hand comes up, goes on the table. The other hand comes up, wiggles the finger, puts it down onto the keyboard. We've blocked out our movements. Fabulous. Assuming that we've blocked out all the head, face, facial puppetry and all that sort of thing, now let's have a look at the hand gestures, because I wanted to go into how I work with that. I'm just going to go back to frame 1 and I'm going to make the table completely invisible now because I just want to work on the hands for a minute and we don't need to see the table. We know the motions are right. As his hand comes up, it goes onto the table. So we've got to pick out the hand gestures that we want to use. Let's select our character, open the 2D motion key editor and open our hand pose editor. First thing we want to do is to select the hand we're working with, in this case, the right hand, select it off the list. And here are all the different poses that we can work with on this hand. We know that until the hand actually starts to move, we don't need to worry about doing anything. So it's not until the hands comes into view that we need to worry. So from this point here, work out, that's the motion, that's the position that we want, for instance. And oh, here we go, we'll pick that one. So it's a bit more closed. And then as his hand comes up, it's going to go into that motion. And now we want the hands to wiggle in and out. So if we just move forward a little bit, close the hands. Oh, actually, we'll do this one. Close the hands up tighter, then move forward, open them out again, move forward, go in tighter again, open them out. Now you'll find that his hand is going to do that nice little finger wiggle. And I got to tell you, if you haven't used bone hands before, start using bone hands. So much better than sprite swapping hands because you get that lovely smooth transition between this and this instead of that quick flick. I think it's fantastic. So once we get to there, we want to hold to that position. Then he's going to start dropping his hand down. And as he does, we're going to go into getting ready to press the keyboard. He'll come down and finally rest, and he'll be touching the keyboard with his finger. Let's just run through that, see how we're doing with the hand motions for the right hand. So nothing happens to begin with. Then brings his hand up, wiggles the fingers, drops it down onto the keyboard, exactly what we want. Now all we need to do is to go back to frame one, do exactly the same thing with the other hand. Select the left hand over here, and now we're going to get ready to use the motions on this hand. Again, don't need to worry about it until it comes up in a view, which is here. So from this point here, we'll have it open like that. He's going to, and I'm just working off the keyframes that are already in place. So I'm just transitioning between those. As his hand comes up, we'll go into that position, and then he's going to flip it over to drop it onto the table. So as he comes across, he's going to do that same hand gesture, but we're going to flip it so that it lands on the table. Now, this is an interesting point. You'll see when he flips his hand, you get that instant flick of the hand gesture from one to the other. It's just an instant flick. If you're happy with that, great, but you can smooth that out. If we come to here and we add that hand gesture in, as we move along, if we take, actually, let's do this. Let's zoom in on the character so we can see what we're doing a little bit better. Right now, we're working in camera mode. See that little red square around the outside? That represents the edge of your television. When you export your finished video, that's the edge of your screen. That we know we're in camera view because camera record mode is selected. If we deselect it, we just go into stage mode. Now we can move around the screen without affecting the camera at all. And it means that I can zoom in a little bit here and see what I'm working on better with Jimmy's hand. There he is. Let's select Jimmy. Let's open up the hands again so that we can see what we're doing. From that gesture there, as we come down to here, we know we're going to snap really fast to there. But we could bring the thumb, just by moving it, we could bring the thumb down to here. Move the thumb down so that as it comes down, it's just going to be a little less snapping. The thumb will move into position just a little bit better. You don't have to do that. It's just something that you can do. You have total control over every finger. Let's go back into record mode. I know I want to hold the hand in that position. So all I need to do is to open my character in the hand gestures, select the hand that I'm working on, which is the left hand, go to my keyframe where it's changed, select the hand and flip it, and then just do that for each remaining keyframe because I want the hand to just stay in that position for the rest of the animation. If I wanted to change them, I could change them, but we don't want to. We just want his hand sitting on the desk. And that's all we want to do for this one. So let's just quickly fill out those last couple. One couple to go. And then we'll be able to put the table back in and do the layering of our character. Let's go back. Here's our animation now. Puts his hand up on the desk, brings the other one up, wiggles the fingers, comes down, presses the keyboard. And on that last one, the hand flips back. Well, there we go. We don't want that. We want that one and flip it. Right. Let's go back to frame one, bring our table back in and start doing our layering. Here's our computer table, bring it back in. Right now, all the action happens behind the desk, but we need some of the action to happen in front of the desk. And you guys know now, because of the last project, how we achieve that. What do? We make a duplicate of Jimmy. Let's duplicate him up. There we go. We now have a duplicate of Jimmy, and when we play the animation, both characters are going to do exactly the same thing, because we want that second Jimmy to be a higher z-axis value than the table. So we'll put it on 3. Therefore, he sits in front of the table. All we have to do is to make invisible all the parts that need to be behind the table. Let's quickly turn them off. Won't take long to do that. There we go. You'll notice at the bottom of the screen that his shoes sit outside of the red square. I don't need to turn them off, but I'm going to, because I'm really pedantic about details and I can't help it. All right. Oh, now I didn't do it at frame 1. There's an interesting thing. You need to make sure that you do it at frame 1. You need to turn all those parts off at frame 1. And I do that all the time. We need to turn all these parts off at frame 1. Let's turn them off. Everything except his face, really, at this point. Turn everything off. So it's all invisible. Now, when his bottom's coming in, that's easy enough. We just turn his bottom off. Okay. So now we play the animation. We've got our 2 Jimmy talents, and all we need to do is to work out when the parts are going to come in that we need. As he lifts his arm up from behind the desk and he's going to put it in front, we know at this point we need his hand to be on top of the desk. So at this point, just before it happens, let's pick his right arm, bring it back into view, and his right hand, his left arm, not his right arm. His left arm, bring it back into view, and his left hand, bring it back into view. Therefore, now he puts his hand on the desk and it's in the right position. It's on top of the desk. The other hand will raise up behind the laptop. That's fine. That's where we want it. He wiggles his finger. Great. As he starts to drop his hand, it needs to go behind the laptop, but then here it needs to go in front of the laptop. So all we need to do is to select the right hand and make it visible, and it will end exactly where we want. And then our final animation with the character both in front and behind the computer looks like that. Oh, except his other hand has disappeared. Good on you guys. If anything disappears, it's easy enough. You just go in, make sure Jimmy Talent 3, that left arm comes back into view, that left hand comes back into view. You can make changes as you go along. So the hand comes up, puts it down, hand goes up and presses it. And that's all there is to it. That's how you can get your characters to be more interactive. That's how you can get characters to merge, to get them behind things. This also applies to picking objects up and things like that. It's all a sleight of hand. It's all a camera magic trick. Let's move on. The next question that I got asked is, explain the use of PSD versus vector files to change characters, colors, shapes, etc. To do this, I've got another project that I'm going to open up, and I'm going to show you the difference between vector characters and PSD characters. Previous versions of Cartoon Animator 5 used PNG characters, which is fine. However, now with Cartoon Animator 5, we can use vector characters, which do have a lot more advantages over PNG characters. On screen at the moment, you can see Susan, who's a vector character, and Chad, who is a PNG-based character. Now, one of the differences here, one of the main differences is if we zoom in on Chad, if we go right in and zoom in on Chad, you're going to see a lot of feathering around the edge of Chad, and that's not going to change because PNGs can't rescale. But if we do the same and we move over here and we look at Susan and we zoom in, you're going to see feathering, but down the bottom here, Cartoon Animator 5 is going to vectorize the image so that now when it's finished, you get a lot sharper image of Susan. So that's one of the main differences here. And it really helps when you want to have a character that's got to zoom in on screen. But what if you want to make changes to a character, to their body? Let's say, for instance, we take Chad Open him in composer mode because we want to add a design to his t-shirt. We want to take a character and we want to make a change to it. That can be done really quite easily. When he opens up in, here we go, when he opens up in composer mode, all we need to do is to select his torso, open the sprite editor, select the torso there, and you're going to see this little button here that says edit in bitmap editor. And when I select that, it's going to open my linked bitmap editor, which for me is Photoshop, but you could use plenty of different software. And it's going to open that body part here in Photoshop for me so that I can draw directly on it and make changes. So say, for instance, we want to just put a little design on Chad's t-shirt like that, nice and simple. All we have to do is hit save. That's off screen, you can't see it, but we hit save. That's going to save it. And then we just close off Photoshop. And when we come back into Cartoon Animator, the change is permanent and it's now part of our character. That works fine if it's a PNG-based character. If it's a vector character like Susan, it's a little bit different. If you use Adobe Illustrator, then it's exactly the same. The process is exactly the same. We take Susan into composer mode, and if you're using Illustrator, you can export your character exactly the same way. But the problem is I use CorelDRAW, so it doesn't work exactly the same for me because currently CorelDRAW is not accepted by Cartoon Animator 5. It will be in the future. So if I was to select Susan's shirt because we wanted to add something to her shirt, if I select the sprite editor, select the shirt, I've got two options. I can export it as a PSD, as a bitmap, like I did with Chad. But if I select edit in vector editor, when I select it, it says CorelDRAW is not available at the moment. Fair enough, that might be added later on, hopefully. Well, I've been told it will. I can't wait. Let's say you're the developer and you created this character. There is still a way that you can do this. I created this character in CorelDRAW, so there is still a way that I can make changes to the shirt, which I'll show you. So this really only applies if you're a developer. Once your character's built and you're here and you've got everything done and you decide, oh, I want to go back and I want to make some changes. All you really need to do is to make sure that you save certain profiles, like your facial puppetry profile. Okay, you make sure that you save that once you've got all your facial puppetry set up, and also make sure that you save your 360 head setup. This is my 360 head setup for Susan, because that way, when we do a fresh install of Susan, we can apply those back to her. So to demonstrate that, let me take you into CorelDRAW for a second. This is my build of Susan. Let me move a couple of windows around. This is my build of Susan. Let's say, for instance, we want to add a design to Susan's shirt. Susan's just had a big lunch and we want to add a stain on her shirt because she's an extremely messy eater. There we go. So I've drawn that on the shirt and I want it to become part of the permanent design of that character. You'll see that that curve I just drew is turned up in the RL Bone Human folder. That's where all the head pivot points are. We don't want it there. If we bring it down here to the RL Image folder, this is the folder that contains all of the curves, the sprites for our different body parts and face parts. So we're going to open that up and there's our curve. We need it to be a part of her torso. So let's scroll down and find it. There's the hip. Open it up. We've got the hip sprite. The first sprite subfolder under hip is always called normal with a colon at the end of it. When we open that up, inside you'll find all the curves that make up this body part. So all we need to do is to take that curve that we've just drawn, bring it into this folder, put it in the position where we want it. It will now appear there. And when we turn the hip on and off, you can see that that curve is now a part of this body part. So if I export my character now as an SVG, I'll export it. go back into Cartoon Animator here, move across the screen a little bit, and we will find our SVG file. There it is. Drag it, drop in here. Now what's going to happen is Susan is going to open here with a fresh install of Susan, and she'll go directly into composer mode, and there is the stain on her shirt. So that's how you can do it if you're the developer and you happen to be using CorelDRAW. It's pretty much the same process with other software. So whatever software you're using, you're going to do pretty much the same thing. So we've brought that in. Then all you need to do is to go in and apply your facial animation setup that we have saved previously. So there's your default mapping table. Apply that. That's going to set up all your eyebrows and face and eyes and all that sort of thing. If you go into the 360 head setup, you'll see at the moment that Susan's head doesn't look quite right as it rotates. If we load our default facial smooth angle data for Susan, then you'll find now when we hit preview, lovely, her head rotates. The only two things, sometimes there's small adjustments that you might need to make. For instance, you'll see that the glasses are sitting on top of the brows. Just drag and drop your folder. Now the glasses are behind, and the same as her back hair. See how her back hair is sitting in front of her torso? Just grab it, drag it down to the layer where you want. Back hair, where is it? Yeah, this one here, isn't it? Yep. Just bring it down to where you want. And you just take it down to where you want it to be. And then you're going to have your character all set up with the permanent new body part that's been changed. So that's really all there is to it. That's nice and easy. All right, moving on again. One of the things that I want to do now is to answer a question that was commonly asked, and that is, can I go over the new features and tools of Cartoon Animator 5? Cartoon Animator 5 has introduced 4 new features so far that include vector formatting, vector scaling, freeform deformation, spring bones, and color management. And I'm going to just quickly run through all those in a little bit more detail than I have before, just to show you how all of those work. And we're going to start with color management. If you have a look at Chad here, who is a PNG character, if I open up the render style on Chad and I change the hue for him, what's going to happen is it's going to affect every single body part of Chad and make him look like he just fell off the bow of the Titanic and spent the last 3 hours in the water. You can't change individual parts for him. However, with Cartoon Animator 5 now having color management for vector characters, if you have a vector character like Susan, developers can build in their own color management. So I created Susan, I set up my color management. If you have a look at the character here and we open the, one second, I've just got to move a screen around. There we go. If we open the SVG color adjustment, you can see the folders that I've created for this character, clothing and body. If I expand them, then each of these folders contains all different elements of Susan that you can change all the different body parts with. So for instance, if we click on her skin, we change the tone of her skin, we drop the saturation down, you've got a whole new skin tone for Susan. This is going to really extend the life cycle of your characters. You can make multiple different looking characters out of one character. It's fantastic. You'll see on her cheeks there, they're still nice and pink and rosy, but if we reduce the opacity down, then they'll blend softer into the character. You can do this with all of her parts. We can take the collared shirt. We can change the saturation, make it much more brighter, much brighter. We can change the hue. Everything you want to change about the character, you can change. But what if you've got a brand new character that you've just brought in, like this Susan, and you want to set up your own color management? How do you do that? I'm going to show you by taking Susan into composer mode with a fresh install of Susan here. I'll show you how I do it. When we select the SVG group editor, it brings up an option to group by color or group by sprites. I choose group by color, no particular reason. It's just the way I work. On screen now, you can see all of the groups of colors that make up this character. There's 61 groups of color. Now, when you first look at this, it's really daunting and you think, oh, it's going to take me forever to do it. It doesn't. It's really easy. All you're doing is putting stuff in folders. I could fully set up all of Susan's color grouping in about a half an hour from scratch. So what I would do is you create all your own subfolders. So I would create one called body, where I'll put all of her body parts. And then I would create one called clothing, where I would put all of her clothing, and then create subfolders to those. So underneath body, for instance, if we create a subfolder, we might create one called hair. Okay. Then all we've got to do is to find all of the groups, all of the colors here that make up her hair and drop them into this folder. That's it. There's different ways you can do that. If I select one of the curves on screen, it will show me here. These three pieces are the same color. They're all part of her hair. Grab them, come up, drop them up into the hair folder. Same thing, just go through all of the individual parts of the hair. There we go. There's another hair part. Bring it up, drop it into there. Or you can open the sprite by clicking on sprite, and then you'll see a little triangle alongside of the groups that contain parts that belong to this particular sprite. So if I select that one, then the sprite's going to flash. All I got to do is to drag and drop it up. And there's the other one there. That's already in there. There's that one. It's already in there. So that's all you've got to do is to go through. You've got to just do that for every single body part. Okay, that's all you've got to do there. That's really easy. But I want to keep moving on because we are going to run out of time. Next, I want to show you spring bones. To do this, I want to give you a quick demonstration. Spring bones. We may go a little bit over. I'm trying hard not to. To show you with spring bones, I want to show you my bonkers character, my karate bonker character. Here he is in CorelDRAW, all set up. We're going to export him as an SVG. And we're going to open that SVG in Cartoon Animator as a fresh file. And I'm going to show you how to apply spring bones to a character. The cutout system of the characters means that initially your character is going to be very stiff and rigid. With spring bones, it's automated animation that Cartoon Animator does all for you, that you don't need to touch. You just set up your parameters. It's going to do it all for you. And the end result is going to leave you with a character that looks so much smoother when it animates. In fact, let me just show you a quick animation of this character when he's finished, what he would look like. If I go to C Drive, Webinar, New Tools, watch this quick animation. All right, nice and easy. All I did there to do that was just drag and drop motions onto him, change the mouse sprite, added some sound effects. That was it. That's all I had to do. All of the hair, the bandana, the belt, everything that moves is done by spring bones, controlled by spring bones. Cartoon Animator does all that for you. I'm going to show you how to apply a spring bone. We need to make sure that we're in the face. Let's say, for instance, there's our pivot point for this part of the bandana. Let's say we want to add some spring bones in there. The first thing we need to do is to add bones to turn into spring bones. Let's select that pivot point, left click down, and we're just going to create a few extra bones, hit the escape key to stop the process. We've now got extra bones in the bandana. Close that off. Let's go open our spring bones here. We need to create a group, which we will call bandana. And we're going to pick the bones that we want to be associated with this group. You can have as many groups as you want. I'm going to select that bone. I'm going to assign it to the group. Now that bone plus every bone after it becomes a spring bone. Don't use the first bone. Use that as an anchor point, because if you pick that first bone, you're going to get really weird results. Now, when I select the body and I hit preview, I can select, here we go. When I move the character, all of a sudden, that bandana moves on its own. And one of the great things here is you've got all these presets, right? So If I hit weighted, it's going to be like it's heavy or wet, so it's going to move accordingly. And if I hit light, it's as if he's falling off a building and the bandana is flying up above him. So that's how you add spring bones. You can add that to older characters from Cartoon Animator 4 too. You don't have to just add it to Cartoon Animator 5 characters. Finally, I've got 2 minutes to go that I'm trying to work on. Finally, I want to quickly just show you freeform deformation. Let's go over that. To show you freeform deformation and the way it works, I just want to bring in a little character here, the Bonkers character again. Here we go. Let's bring in my Karate Bonker. And what we're going to do is I'm going to apply a couple of animations, but then I'm going to apply some freeform deformation to it so that you can see how good the difference makes when you apply freeform deformation. Revolution's created a cutout system of characters, but then has given you all these tools to try to make sure that those cutout characters don't move like a stiff, rigid character, that they're nice and flexible and spongy and soft. And freeform deformation is absolutely one of those tools. If we've got our little character there and we apply an animation to it, let's get him to jump up in the air. Go to our 2D motions. Here we go. All right, let's grab our cheer jump, apply it. Great. Oh, that was the end motion. We wanted the start motion, whereas the cheer jump start motion. Here we go. Cheer jump start. Beautiful. And cheer jump end. Beautiful. Nice and quick. The character's just going to jump in the air like that. No problem. Let's duplicate that character. Where's my button? Let's duplicate that character. Because what we're going to do is on the second character that we're going to put alongside of him, we're going to apply some freeform deformation. Okay. So right now, the two characters work exactly the same. But if we select this second character and open our freeform deformation timeline at the bottom here, let's work out which character we're working on. That one. Here we go. If we open our freeform deformation file down here and then open up our menu, there's our freeform deformation menu. All presets that you can choose from to change the shape of your character. But we'll reset it for now. As our character bends down, we're going to go into a really, really tight squash. Now, what I'm doing here, I'm doing really over-exaggerated. You don't want to use freeform deformation to do over-exaggeration. I'm just doing it here to show you an example of exactly what it does. So he's going to squash down. Then as he comes back up, we'll reset to take him back to normal. As he gets up to his highest point here, we're going to exaggerate his motion up, stretch him around like that. Bring his nose back up so he doesn't distort too bad. He's going to jump right up in the air like that. And as he comes back down, reset, go back into the squash. Oh, if you want to, you can redo it, or you could just grab that first clip, right click, copy, work out where he's going to squash down to, paste it there, and it will just paste it back in for you. And then he'll come up, reset. And when we play the animation, you'll go up, and you'll see what I mean. You can get a lot more squash and stretch in your characters. And that, ladies and gentlemen, takes us to the end of everything that I want to do for the webinar today. I'm going to hand it over to Kai. We've still got time left. I'm 1 minute over. That's not a bad effort. And we've now got our Q&A session over. So Kai, over to you, sir.
So I was just putting on the Jeopardy music there as a joke.
That's okay.
That's kind of like the wrap it up music.
That's it. That's my time, so to speak.
All right, awesome. Thanks so much, Gary. That's some really awesome tips. I hope you guys, are super psyched about all those tips. Gary, like I said, he's a total pro. That's why we named the webinar Ask a Pro. So thank you again, Gary, for all that stuff. And what we're going to do now is we're going to run through a number of questions. You guys have some Q&A time available here.
Before you start, can I just say one thing? We've got an hour to go. We'll get through as many as we can, but just keep in mind that if I can't answer the questions, if the questions are too long to answer, or I just don't know the answer to it, don't worry. I gave you all the options at the start of where you can find answers. And if you get stuck, just send me an email to GarryPye@reallusion.com. I'll set you up. I'll make sure that you get the answers to your questions.
Awesome. All right,
Okay.
I'm just trying to adjust
You're
my
right,
lighting
mate.
here.
You're right.
'Cause basically, the sun's going down here now, so my face looks like super white, super washed out. Anyways, we won't worry about that for now. Cool. All right, so let's get into the Q&A. Thanks, guys, for sticking with us all the time here. And if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A. We're going to go to question 1 right here. Like I mentioned, we are going to have an hour of Q&A at the max. So, Tanya, thanks for you're awesome, Gary. You got this. Hi, Kai. That's more of a comment, but thanks for the love, Tanya. Really appreciate it.
Tanya's lovely. She's always here.
Yeah, she's been here for for sure. Next one we'll go to is from Pavel here. How to replace in 360 head mouth parts without a beard to mouth parts where the beard moves down with the open mouth and the head moves sidewise as well. So I think basically Pavel is asking here if you have a 360 head with a beard, what's the best way to, I guess, ensure that the beard moves consistently with the face? Well,
it's really just a matter of, it all comes down to your 360 head setup. Look, I've said before, when I'm trying to see if I'm trying to think of a character that I've got with a beard that's got a good 360 head. Just bear with me. Look, the way I set up my heads is thinking of it like a Muppet, like a puppet, right? So actually, I haven't got a character that's got a beard, and I can probably help Pavel like offline, but let me just bring the Martin character back in just for a second, because I can sort of show you on screen what I'm talking about. Not necessarily with the beard, but I can show you with the 360 head setup. The reason that I say it's like a Muppet is because when I start building a head, I start with a blank face with nothing on it except the eyes, right? And then I start adding all the extra little bits and pieces to it. So when you open up your 360 head setup, where is it? Oh, there it is over there. Sorry, I've got screens covering everything because I've got so many screens open. There we go. So when you take the glasses, actually, we can use the glasses as an example, right? There's the glasses there. When I turn to the left, all I have to do is work out exactly where I want the glasses to sit. If you assume that the glasses with a beard, right? The glasses are sitting there, that's a beard, just for the sake of the argument. Then when the head turns to the left, all I've got to do is to use my deform and transform keys to work out the shape of the beard or the whatever part that I want, so that when we transform, when we go from that position to that position, it will follow along. It's a matter of, it's trial and error. There's no template that you can really set up for it. It's a matter of looking at it. And then what you do is you just keep playing around in preview mode and moving the character around, and parts will stick out where you go, you know what, that doesn't look quite right. Trust your eye and look at it. And if it doesn't look quite right, fix it. Just keep making adjustments to the parts until every time you move around, it starts to look right. I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, please send me an email. I'll sort you out.
Yeah, I think that should be good. And just a quick addition to that, to get the beard there in the first place, you have to have that beard as a layer in your character. So if you need to customize your character, take them into Photoshop or CorelDRAW like Gary uses, and you'd have to add that beard as a separate accessory layer.
Yeah, and with the face, you can have as many layers as you want. So you can have a beard and glasses, even your hair. You can break your hair up into multiple layers. The template character has front hair and back hair. I'm working on a new series of characters that I only just started yesterday that are going to end up having about 10 layers of hair. All the hair will have individual spring bones, so that when the character moves its head, that hair is going to move like a mop. It's gonna have all this lovely hair movement. Put much stuff on the face as you want. Go crazy.
Is it a Rasta character?
No, but the hair is very much like that. Very much like that. It's not.
You can have 5 beards if you want.
Yeah,
Put
exactly.
as many beards as you want on
Well, that's the thing. You can have a nice long beard and have it waving around. That's right. The next question I can't answer, but I'm pretty sure I think I know someone who can.
This is Don from Don, you mean? How can I reverse a motion track on the timeline for a character moving actions in the opposite direction?
Yeah, I remember seeing on the Cartoon Animator Users Facebook page, I'm sure I remember that Anita Bell might have been the one who answered this. Don, if you send me an email Well, actually, Don, you know, the easiest way to get an answer to this, put that exact question on the Cartoon Animator Users Facebook page. I guarantee you get an answer to that today. That's easy. I don't know. I've never had to do it. I've never had to reverse a motion on a track on a timeline, but I'm sure there's a way of doing it.
I mean, technically, what I think you would probably do is copy and paste the first frame and the last frame of a motion, and then just create it as a totally separate frame. Because if it's a transform, like I'm just think of a guy like moonwalking forward and moonwalking backwards. So you basically just copy and paste the keyframes from the ends of each clip and then just reverse them.
It makes sense. I've never had to do it.
Yeah, unfortunately, you can't just click and drag the clip and it'll reverse it. But yeah,
actually,
I think
it would be a good feature. It would actually be a good feature of a future animator. Apply a motion, then hit reverse and reverse that motion would be a really good feature.
Especially if you want to do the moonwalk back and forth, you know, it's a fast way to do the moonwalk. Question from Donald here. I want to ask about the breeze feature will be added to the spring bone settings. Oh, so this is the wind simulation, I believe.
Okay. Iceworks. Yes, I know. Nice guy, Donald. Okay. So you're talking about the idea of having like a physics engine where you could have a tree sitting there and then wind blowing it and it's going to blow the tree. No, we don't have it. No, we're not getting exactly that I know of as yet. But Kai and I are about to go into a meeting after this where there's new features coming up in Cartoon Animator 5.2, and I think you're going to be really pleased with what's coming up. It's not exactly that, but there's stuff coming up that is going to give you a bit more freedom in motion. That's as much as
I think they're coming out with a way to simulate that. I'm not sure if it's 5.2. I can't remember, to be honest. The last time we had the update was about back in March, February, back when you and I were both in Taiwan. So
that's right.
My memory fails me at my old age.
I've got a feeling that the meeting we're going into today will be about this. I'm pretty certain that based on the timeline of Cartoon Animator, I'm pretty sure that's the meeting we're about to walk into in about 50 minutes. And yeah, Donald, if I'm right, you're going to be very happy because I'm telling you, this new feature that's coming is so cool. It's so cool. You're going to love it.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to the next one. Anonymous attendee. Dun, dun, dun. Is it possible to do hand-drawn animation in the software, drawing the frames while using onion skin?
Okay. You're right.
Go ahead. Go for it. Yeah.
Look, you can't draw in the software. It's not an illustration software. It's an animation software. But if you go and do a search in the marketplace for a guy who comes under the name of DexArt, that's DEXART. His name's Declan Walsh. He's an ex-Disney animator. He's an absolute legend. He does frame-by-frame hand-drawn effects for Cartoon Animator, which he sells in the marketplace. They're all drawn frame by frame in, say, like something like Photoshop. Then you save all the frames, you bring them into Cartoon Animator, and you can have an animated prop. So yes, you could do it, but it's not an onion skinning style of animation. It's not like that. You know why we don't have onion skinning? Because really we don't need it because of the motions. You can just keep scrubbing backwards and forwards through your motions and see all your movements in real time. And then you can make changes to them accordingly. So I think the reason we've never got it is we don't need it. We only have onion skinning in the 360 head setup, which I don't use anyway.
Yeah, I mean, technically, I just actually did a tutorial on rotoscoping in iClone, which is a very similar technique. And you can technically do it in Cartoon Animator, but of course, the drawings aspect that Gary was mentioning, we don't have that. So that's all done.
Honestly, it's funny, but sometimes on like social media forums now, I'll see people going, oh, you don't have a drawing program, you can't draw with it, that's no good. And I go, that's such a silly attitude because all of the money and resources that Reallusion has is put into animation, not illustration. There's plenty of illustration programs out there that you can use. Pick the one you like, use that. Don't be bogged down to just what they supply you with. Use whatever you want, and then use this program to animate.
Right on. All right, let's go to the next one from Bob. My character walks forward, stops, then turns using flip hip in 2D motion editor. Then my character walks away, but my character still walks in the previous direction. So this is I'm trying to picture that in my head.
Yeah, me too.
Generally, if you're gonna flip the character, I wouldn't use the motion editor. There's actually a flip feature on the toolbar. You just click the flip button and it flips it that way.
And you know what? I wouldn't even do it that way. Bob, you know what I would do? If I if I have a character walk on screen and then they've got to flip and walk off screen, I do a camera cut in between. Okay. I'll have the character walk on, then I'll camera cut to something, cut back to the character, and it's a new project file, which will edit in post-production, like I said. So it's a new project file with the character flip, and then they walk off. I wouldn't try and do it all in one hit. That's just me. Look, I try to do things the easiest, most efficient way. And yeah, camera cuts are your best friend.
Yeah, camera cuts, you can do a lot of cheating with camera cuts. Just like, you know, a Steven Seagal, like Steven Seagal Kung Fu movie or something like that. I mean, the guy can't really fight, but you see like they just cut. And he's just like, oh, it looks so cool and stuff.
It's all about magic tricks. It's all magic tricks and sleight of hand. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Look at the next question. Look at the next question.
Hold on a sec here. From GE, if there are not plans to include creating hand-drawn animation in the software. No, unfortunately, not at the moment.
I hope they don't. I mean it. I hope they don't. I don't want illustration software in here. I want to use my own illustration software, bring it in, and then animate it. I don't think they'll ever do it because we're using a puppet cutout system. If they go to a system that some other software uses where you've got your Bezier curves and stuff like that, maybe they'll need to look at it. But you know, even so, why couldn't I bring in an image from CorelDRAW and then have the Bezier curves still transfer in here and be able to move them around if I wanted to? But I don't need it. I don't think we need it personally.
Yeah, and I'll like Gary mentioned, stuff like CorelDRAW and Photoshop have been around for decades. And if we were to, you know, try to produce a character creation or drawing aspect of Cartoon Animator, it wouldn't nearly be as good as what those tools offer.
I agree.
So yeah,
I agree.
at least in the first version, you know, we could have, you know, 5-10 years later, but something that exceeds the whatever you need. But let's go to the next question. Anyways, from Lola. As a beginner, what's the best app to use for creating kids animated cartoons? Where can I design 2 or more characters, have them pick up things like books, and then playing nursery rhymes or ABC songs?
The answer is Cartoon Animator.
Yeah, pretty much.
Everything
pretty much do all that.
Actually, you know what? Everything you want to do there, Cartoon Animator can do it, and in my personal opinion, can do it faster than just about any other software. Look, all the resources and money that's being spent on Reillusion at the moment on Cartoon Animator is being spent to try and make the software fast and easy. That's their focus, fast and easy. And the quality, well, that just depends on you. But if everything's fast and easy, you're going to get through your work a lot quicker. Everything you can do there, go and have a look at YouTube. Actually, if you send me an email, I can show you some links of guys working with Cartoon Animator who are producing kids' videos and songs and stuff like that. And they're getting millions and millions of hits, and they're doing really, really well.
Cool. I just wanted to mention, I'm looking at the chat window here. There's a couple of people putting questions in the chat window. Put your questions in the Q&A window, just so you're aware. To answer your question, Anil, we're basically going through a list of questions that are already in the Q&A. So I think we're going to get to you in a couple more questions here. So
don't worry, we'll get to as many as we can.
Yeah, we got lots of time. Question from Usaf Ali. Does this work for G2 characters?
Depends what you mean by does this work? Like, look, some of what I've shown you today will work for G2 characters, some of it won't. We're up to like the G3 characters that we're using at the moment, the vector-based G3 characters are a long way away from what the G2 characters were. There's not a lot of people using the G2 characters anymore. There's a few of them. Those guys who are using it do amazing things with it. But for the most part, it's about G3 characters now.
Yeah, Usaf Ali, just maybe give us some context on what works, what you're wondering works for G2 characters, and then we can get a better answer for you there. A question from Anil. Here you go.
I love this question.
Character feels and looks like it's floating on the ground when they walk on the ground. How can I fix it?
Okay. This one's the ghostly floating is really easy. If you've got a character right on screen, I can show you this real quick. If you've got this is a really common question. This is a really common question. It's a good one. Let's just go with move. Where's walk? Come on, guys. Go to occupations, career. We just need a character that's walking. There we go. Okay, if we've got a character here that's walking like that, okay, all well and good. Then the character gets to the end of their motion and they're supposed to stop there. Let's put the motion on so that we can see. There's the motion. At the end of the motion, the character is supposed to stop. But all of a sudden, let's say your character just starts doing this ghostly little slide, right? So he's supposed to stop, but oh, you've got the ghostly little slide going in. What it comes down to is your transform track of the character. The transform track represents the movement of the overall character as a whole. So if you imagine it as just one piece, don't worry about the bones, it's just one piece. The transform track from this keyframe here to this keyframe here, it's telling it, Cartoon Animator is telling the part to move from there to there. So wherever your character is floating, find the point where he starts to float, look for the keyframe directly after that on the transform track, delete it, and then your character is going to walk along and stop exactly where you want him to stop.
Yeah, just to add on to that, be aware there's two types of motions that you can, are included in the library and that you can purchase from the content store as well. One is called a root motion, and the other is called a transform motion. Now, what Garry just showed you there was a transform motion, which basically means you need to change the transform position of the character, which means the position of the character on the screen. You have to do that manually, otherwise they'll just walk in place. So in those kind of motions, the sliding is often a symptom of either your transform keyframe is too close or too far away. It's hard to explain, but basically, yeah, you need to adjust the position of that transform keyframe.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's all there is to it. If something's moving and you're not expecting it to move, like all of a sudden the character's arm moves up like that, it means that the bone is going from one keyframe to another and moving. So just eliminate the keyframe and it will stop moving.
Yep, good. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question there, Neil. It's a pretty easy solution. Question from Don. Any advice for when my older projects from CTA 3 and CTA 4 won't open in CTA 5 and it crashes? Don, there's probably a technical issue. I would recommend, honestly, I'll just say contact customer support.
Yeah, which is just support@reallusion.com. Look, I don't use Cartoon Animator 3 anymore, but I still use Cartoon Animator 4. I've never had any issues with crashing or anything like that. Maybe, and to be honest, maybe I'm just lucky. I don't know, but I've never had any problems. But yeah, that's a tech question, unfortunately. And to be honest, it's also such a general question that without specifics, you would have to send them your project file that's crashing and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. It's a technical question, so nothing we can really answer here. Question from Patty. I'm shopping for a new Windows computer. What are the specifications of yours?
First of all, hi, Patty. I love Patty. She's with me all the time. Patty, you know what? You're going to hate this answer because the answer is, I don't know. Here's how I work. Once a year, I collect a bunch of cash and I throw it at my computer guru guy and I go, here, make it faster. That's all I do. I don't know anything about my computer. I am so useless when it comes to the technical side of stuff. I haven't got a clue. I just put as much RAM in there as I can. I try to use a solid state hard drive if I can because it tends to work faster. My video cards and things like that. I just throw cash at my computer, and I've worked with my guy for 20 odd years and he looks after me. I'm sorry. Actually, you know what? Put that on the Cartoon Animator users Facebook page. You'll get heaps of answers to that one. You'll get heaps of answers.
Yeah, good idea. And people probably share their specs there and how it performs. I think, Garry answered it pretty well. I don't need to really go into more detail on that because there's of course on the Cartoon Animator website, there's the specifications, like the required specs and all that stuff. So you just basically can look at that. And
whatever the required specs are, double it. Just go bigger. Go bigger.
Look at Mr. Moneybags over here. Just go bigger, man.
You got it.
Just throw your money at the computer guy.
But that's what I do. I'm in here and I work with this all day, every day. So I need to make sure that what I'm working with works as good as possible. So yeah, this is where all my money goes.
Good stuff. All right. Question from David. How do you set up a character to be able to use auto lip sync?
Okay, the
Good
good news. Hi,
question.
Dave. Another one. How are you, Dave? Good man. Look, with the auto lip syncing, here's the thing. Let me think. If you go to webinar number 2, there's a whole section on lip syncing, but I'll just tell you briefly. When you're setting up your character, you need to make sure that you have sprites in place for the first up to, well, which one is it? Is it CDSKZ, I think.
Are you talking about for the lip sync?
Yeah, I think it's the first 15. So it's from normal all the way down to CDSKZ.
All the lip sync ones are just the ones with the like U and WOO and all that stuff.
Yeah, but what I mean is like when you apply an audio track and auto lip syncing kicks in, it selects from the first 15 mouth sprites, right? So you need to put those in there. But what I do is I've got like 55 different mouth sprites in there because I do manual lip syncing. But if you want to do auto lip syncing, just make sure that your first 15 sprites are as accurate as possible to what they're trying to be. So that's the main thing there, because if I use auto lip syncing, I can't get Cartoon Animator to use my sprites in auto lip syncing. I have to do it in manual.
Yeah, auto lip syncing will only use the ones that are classified as lip syncing sprites. So that's the ooh, and whatever. There's 15 of them, and they're just basically letters. The other ones like normal and open, etc. Those are used for expressions. But you can add in as many as you want. You can have 100 lip syncs in there if you want. I'm down to about 55 on most of my characters now. Good stuff. Yeah, that gives you a lot of flexibility for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. You know what? It's funny with lip syncing because they go, oh, here's the sound effect for, say, the letter A. But you don't just, like most letters of the alphabet have 2 sounds. So A has A and A, and your mouth moves different for the different ones. And then you get very specific speech shapes like CH and R and things like that are just not covered.
Yeah, I mean, like you have the way that regular people say A, and then you have the way like Australian people are like I.
And how the Canadians say it at the end of every sentence.
I. All right, a question from Alvaro here. Could Garry tell us what's the best way to turn a G3 character's body at least 90 degrees? Of course, 180 would be much better.
Okay. Well, look, I do all my characters at the angle that you can see that Susan's on at the moment, okay? That's just the way I work. If you really want to have a character that works on 90 degrees, you could design the side-facing body. That's easy enough. And then with the head, you can actually, like I have my heads rotate to around about that level. When my character, that's as far as I need my characters to rotate their head, right? However, with your setup, you can take that and you can have your character move all the way across as far as you want to get a full side profile view if you want to. Clearly, that is not how you would do it. That is terrible. But you could have your characters so that they'll go to a full 90-degree turn. When you're setting up the original head, you can decide just how far you want. I think my angle is 40 degrees. I think from memory, the angle that I use is 40 degrees, but you can have it go as far as you want. And then the body, you would just use because you've got the 2 different templates of body. You've got front facing and side facing. With side facing, I do it at about 315 degrees, but you can have it at 90 degrees if you want. You can have it side facing as much as you want. But if you wanted a character to be able to turn those 2 different angles, I would make 2 different bodies. I would have a forward facing body, and then I'd have a side facing body. And again, use the camera cuts to cut between them. You can't rotate a body at this stage.
Yeah, that's coming up in the future though.
I still can't see how they're going to. I'm so impressed if it does, because I've given this a lot of thought, and I know the tech guys, the wizards out there, but I can't see how they're going to do it. What if you've got a character wearing a backpack? How do you get the backpack to go around?
Well, that's the next level.
Keep it simple. Don't get me wrong. Look, the guys, let's be honest, we never would have thought 360 heads were possible when we were in Cartoon Animator 1, Crazy Talk Animator 1. So who knows what's possible.
Yeah, we're knuckleheads. Those guys are the
I
geniuses
got
over there in the R&D.
even when they do get it right, it still takes me 6 months to work it out.
Yeah. When I'm learning this stuff, I'm like one of those chimpanzees, like hanging on the keyboard, like, ooh,
Yeah, I'm
let's
not
try
very
this.
good at this stuff.
Okay, question from Don here. How do I change the 2D motion key editor standard image to my character design with the bones superimposed?
I don't know the answer to this question, Don. I'm sorry.
not really clear on the question.
Okay.
Maybe you can clarify, Don.
Or even just post that question in the Cartoon Animator users Facebook page. When you also when you post your questions in there, I'm on there all day, every day. I'll see the question, I'll jump in, I'll follow the answers, I'll try to help direct the conversation to a position where you get an answer. See, for instance, a question like that, the person that I would go to is David Arundel. He's a little bit more techie than I am. He could very well answer that question for you. But as I said at the start, sadly, I do not know everything. Sorry.
All right, well, let's go on to the next one for now. Question from Nazir. How do you do food eating and cooking animations?
No, that's a really good question.
It's a good question. Yeah.
That's a really good question. And you know what? That would be a question that I'd like to cover with a project file in one of the webinars, because that would be really cool. Like to be able to get a character to pick up a sandwich, put it to their mouth, take a bite, pull the sandwich away, and there's a bite mark in the sandwich. Like that would be really cool. Or to be able to pick up the drink, and actually drink it and things like that. But the short answer here is, as far as eating and that sort of thing, first of all, you got to get the character to pick up the object. And to do that, you've got to create a sprite for the hand holding the object that would be just a sprite that's attached to the end of the arm. So you'd swap out the bone hand for the hand that's holding the sandwich. And then when you take it to the mouth, provided you had a mouth sprite that works with the chewing motion, which is like, for instance, like I have that sort of image for Susan, right? If you created 2 or 3 different sprites for the cheeks opening and closing, you could have the chewing motion in there. You could do that absolutely, and that's a great question. That'd be a fun one to do in a webinar, actually.
Yeah, I think that would be an awesome topic for a webinar. You could have like a webinar cooking with Gaz or something like that. Where you just show how to cook different meals at the same time.
I love it.
There's one person in the comments here, Antonio basically nailed it. Basically with visibility options, switching to the next image or sprite. Yeah, that's essentially would be the large part of it for sure. So, all right. Thanks for the question, Nazir. Good question. Question from Beth. Can we get a copy of your checklist for creating animation?
Yeah, absolutely. What I will do, how can we do that? I tell you what to do. Post that on the Cartoon Animator Facebook group, and I'll make sure that I reply to it tomorrow with my checklist. That'll be done by tomorrow. It may not be today, but I will have it done tomorrow. Okay,
cool. Question from anonymous attendee here. Thanks, Gary. How to animate characters walking away in a scene or with their back facing towards the camera?
Okay, I've got to give credit here to Anita Bell, who came up with a really, really clever way of doing this. You can use a forward-facing character, and then all you need to do is to have, instead of having all the facial features, just have the top layer as the back of the hair. You'd then have to create all the back of the character. You'd have to actually design the back of the character. You can't do it with any of the characters that you're going to buy in the marketplace, because you actually have to have the character set up for a character that's from behind. Again, if we get to the point where a character can rotate in 3D again, then you'll be able to do it really easy by hitting a button and just rotating the character. But right now, you'd have to start from scratch. You'd never do it with any of the characters that are in the marketplace at the moment. You'd have to start from scratch and build the character as a backward-facing character. And then you could apply, say, 3D motions to it and things like that as the character's walking away. That you could do, but you're not going to be able to do it with any characters that you purchase.
Yeah, it'll take some editing to create a totally separate rear-facing or
and again,
180-degree facing character.
Can I just say to the anonymous attendee, if I had a scene where a character needed to walk away, then I would just think outside the box and try to come up with a way of doing it where I didn't need to show that particular shot. For instance, if you wanted a character walking away, then what I would do is I would have the camera in front of the character as if it's walking to camera, have the rest of the background and the other character off in the distance so that they're walking towards you and you can tell that they're walking away from the other person. I would just change the angle that the camera's coming at. So there's always a way.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Well, you just got to think outside the box. You can't, the thing is, you can't do everything, right? I mean, you can't do everything. You've got to be creative to do the things you want to do. Anything you want to do, you'll find a way to do it. Like you could, as I said, you could build a character from behind and have it done if it was that important. You know what, here's a quick tip. You know what you could do? Instead of building an entire character for the shot of the character walking away, what you could do would be to just have a single PNG of the character from behind, rig up a really simple bone system, and then keep the camera just from the waist up so that you don't need to see the legs walking, and have the character walking away that way and just move the bones within the character. So yeah, you can do it that way.
Yeah, that's actually awesome. If you a strategic camera placement is your best friend too.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's just about being strategic.
Yeah. All right. Anonymous again asks, any tips for long dresses, for gowns, for example, and walking animations?
Yes. See, when it says sit animations doesn't work well, they do. The sit animations work great, but not if the dress or the gown is rigid. Okay. And the only way you can do this is if you if you develop the character yourself and you put in enough bones. If you have a look at my character here of Jane, right? Jane was specifically, she was a test that I did for this. She was specifically designed. Can I have her? Yeah, 1 second. There we go. She was specifically designed so that when she sits down, of course, the dress stays rigid like that. But I put all the bones in place so that you can actually move all the dress parts around piece by piece, and then you can create the effect of her sitting down. So again, it's a matter of thinking outside the box, but in this case, it's really just a point of you need to be the developer to have thought to put all those bones into place. But as you can see, like that's a pretty convincing position of her sitting down. Once we take the bones away, that's pretty convincing that you can have her sitting down. You just got to have everything squashed up, but you can't do it with all characters. You can't do it with all characters.
Yeah, it's cool that you have the spring bones on the dress there as well. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, well, look, the final animation, the way she animates when you walk and you get that nice spring in the dress and the hair, it looks amazing. But that's the thing. Don't, like, if you're going to have the dress, don't have the dress as one part. Have it as 5 or 6 different parts, and they'll all move independently. And then when you apply a motion, spring bones, yeah, they come up fantastic.
Cool. All right. Next question from David here. Why does CTA5 work opposite of Photoshop with layers? It has things on upper layers in the background and things on lower layers on the top. Just a bit confusing that it doesn't work the same as Adobe products.
Dave, I got no idea, bud. I didn't make that decision. It's just, you know what? It's just a design decision. It's just the way they did it. Why does have it work opposite? It has things on upper layers in the background. Oh, you're talking about the layering structure. Yeah, and you can't change that. It's annoying. You should be able to hit a button and arrow at the top, hit it, and then it would reverse. I agree. Just, you know what? I've been doing it for so long, I didn't even think about it. Now that's going to irritate me all day because I'm going to notice that now, thanks to Dave.
Look what you've gone and done, David. You got
yeah,
they're going to make Gary all like, All right. Another anonymous question here. What about defining the outlines for the hands? Yes. Cartoon body to stand out better when animating.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's what I've done with my characters here. So if you have a look at Anita's hand, for instance, I put the outline on the character's hands. I got to tell you, it was not easy to do, to try and get it in a way so that when the character's hands would move, that the outline would convincingly follow the fingers. See, the problem is trying to get all your little lines to join up. One of the things that I've actually requested for future iterations of Cartoon Animator is that we have a button that we can press that will give the characters an outline, because I think that would be really handy if we could do that, and then change the thickness and the color of it, like the old Disney animations used to have different colored outlines for their animations. So if you have a look at my character here, for instance, my little bonker, once we turn off the bones so that you can see that each part, and I only do it with the hands. I don't do it with any other part of the character, but each of the hands has an outline so that when the character makes a fist or something like that, the fingers are a little bit more defined. So yeah, that's just something that you can't do it on a character that doesn't already have it. You need to buy a character that has that already in place.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I got maybe like a three-part question here from Antonio. Basically, we will have any options for cutscenes. Will we have any options for cutscenes instead of rendering?
No, and you don't. And honestly, Antonio, you don't. Just on that, just on the first sentence, you don't need it. That's what I said to you. You don't need cutscenes in Cartoon Animator. All you've got to do is make each scene a separate project and then export it and edit them all together at the end. You don't need it directly in Cartoon Animator, in my opinion. Maybe there's a specific reason somebody needs it, but I've never needed it.
Yeah, I agree on that. We'll go to the next part of his question here. It seems like some of his content doesn't follow from Cartoon Animator 4 to 5. All of the content we have is backwards compatible, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I haven't had any issue with that. There is a link that I can give you that will tell you, like when Cartoon Animator 5 first came out, there's an article that was written that shows you how to get your content from Cartoon Animator 4 to Cartoon Animator 5. I'm happy to send that to you if you send me an email. But there's no reason why to come across.
Yeah, I misinterpreted follow. I think he's like basically transferring the content from one version to the next. I actually did a tutorial on that, and I think it should be in
that's the link I was going to send him. That's right.
Yeah, it's on the Real courses page, probably under the really intro stuff somewhere. Hopefully you can check that out, Antonio. The last part of his question here is, how can I fix hand motions when moving other parts? Sometimes the hands become stumps, for lack of a better word.
No, look, Antonio, you're absolutely right about this. It's the reason that I do hand gesturing as the very final step of my animation is because I find so often that when I make changes to things that for some reason it will affect hand gestures, whether it's the flipping of a hand or the shape of a hand, it'll flip it. That's why I do it as the very last thing, once I've blocked everything else in. And I try to only make changes to hand gestures on the keyframes that already exist. It is a weird thing. Sometimes I'll find that I'll be working, and you saw it in the webinar when I did the project file that I did earlier. Sometimes I'll be working on this hand and I've got all my hand gestures right. And then when I start working on this hand, this one will flip or it'll change like that. And I've got to go back in and change it back again. I don't know why. I don't necessarily think it's like a glitch or anything like that. I think it's just got to do with the order in which you do things. I can't give you a fix to it because I suffer the same problem. Sorry, dude.
All right. Hopefully it answers all your questions there, Antonio. Thanks for the questions. That's great. Anil asks, can we rotate a prop on every axis?
Only if you draw it on every axis. What you'd need to do, if you wanted to do a cube and it was there, and then there, and then there, and then there, you could draw all of those, then import them as a sequence so that you can have it sitting there and have it rotate when you want to, which is essentially, again, what Dex Art does, what Declan Walsh does, where he creates fire and all that sort of thing. And it's a whole series of individual frames that then play out in Cartoon Animator frame by frame. So yeah, you'd have your cube sitting there and you could rotate it, but you can't rotate it in 3D space like you can in iClone. No. Yeah,
unfortunately, it doesn't have the 3D data, so it's kind of difficult to do that in the actual working window of Cartoon Animator. And like Gary just mentioned, DexArt can creates like a sprite sequence, I guess.
Yeah,
exactly. So
that's how you do
software.
That's a manual process at this stage, and I think it always will be.
Alrighty, David, how about instead of onion skin, you put an actual movie of a person doing the moonwalk and then set your character every several frames to match the movie?
Do you want to know something? I've done this. I created a character back in Cartoon Animator 3 of a T-Rex. right? And we decided that we wanted to have our own motions specifically just for that one character. I wanted my own motions. And that's exactly what I did. I went to YouTube and I found video of a T-Rex just walking, and I put it on screen. I put my T-Rex over the top, and then I keyframed all of the bones into position and then save the motion at the end. So yeah, you can absolutely, it's rotoscoping, right? That's how the old games like Prince of Persia and stuff like that did it. I mean, Disney was doing it back in Snow White, where they'd get the actors to come on screen and act it out, and then they could draw from reference. So nowadays you just draw over the top of it. But yeah, absolutely, you can do that.
I thought you were going to put on one of those big inflatable T-Rex costumes and have Maddie just record you.
How good are they?
Use that as a reference.
I love those videos.
All right. Question from Antonio again here. Will Real Illusion have non-cartoonish movements in added bundles?
Okay. It's not the cartoon movements it's not the movements that are cartoonish. It's the characters. If you took, like, even my character like Jack Danger, right? Which is, yes, a cartoon character, but a heck of a lot less cartoony than most of the characters that I've created, like my bonkers and stuff like that. If you take a character like this, when you apply an animation to it, this is only my opinion, I'm not saying I'm right, but in my opinion, the motions when they're added to it are a lot less cartoony when you apply it to a character that's not a cartoon. Does that make sense? If the cartoon character looks serious, then the motions when applied to it are going to look a lot more serious. That's just my opinion. I don't know if I'm right or wrong.
All right.
I don't know if I'm right.
Yeah, it really depends. You know, you can customize them all, but I mean, with 2D characters, you don't want them to really have realistic motions. They have to be at least a little bit exaggerated or cartoony, just to create the sense of dynamic animation. You know what, it looks kind of strange if it's too smooth, but of course there's different sorts of animation styles. Everyone will have their own preference. So as
a point too, in my opinion, the 3D motions are way more realistic than the 2D motions. No, I don't mean realistic as in accurate, right? They're both perfectly accurate, but the 3D motions are a lot more the way real people move, because they're based on motion capture, whereas the 2D motions are more cartoony. Definitely.
Alrighty. Next question from Antonio. How can we do a POV without showing nothing but the hands? Like if you're playing a first-person shooter, that's kind of an interesting scenario.
Yeah, in the case like that, I would just have like the hand, say for instance, like the hand with the gun, right? I would have the hand with the gun, this just as a prop, right? So if you take me out of the screen, so that you just have that as a prop, and then just moving your background and then just having the hand move along as you move along. That can be done. I've never done a shot like that, but that's a great idea.
That's an interesting scenario.
Yeah. No, because essentially the hand becomes the actor, right?
Yeah.
And you're just moving the hand around, and then you just put some bones in it. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be super easy to do. Of course, I would recommend using vector graphics, because your hands are going to be really close to the screen.
Yes.
As opposed to a PNG, but that's the only
that could be done.
Feedback I can give. All right. Another question, Antonio. I think this is a 360 turn on background scenes.
Not sure what he means. If he means a character, no, characters can't do a 360 turn. And if you mean backgrounds, no, because they're two-dimensional.
Yeah, it's gonna look weird. Long beards for
Antonio,
360 motions. Yeah, so I think we kind of went through the beard thing already a little bit earlier. So we'll just skip that one for now. Question from Don. I saw your 2D motion key editor dialog box with the character inside it. How did you do that?
Oh, great question. Great question. Okay,
I didn't notice
nice and easy. All you do, once you've designed your character, this is 2 seconds. Once you've designed your character, okay, you bring it into, actually, hang on. Oh, sorry, I've just hit escape. I'm probably going to crash the program because I might not. Look, there we go. I want to go back out. I'll show you an example of it. There's no point showing you the one that's already done. I might as well show you one. Okay, if I bring in my little SVG actor that we did before, that's a good question. We bring in my SVG actor from before. Once it comes in, it's going to go. So I've just designed my character in CorelDRAW. I bring my character in. it comes into Cartoon Animator. It's instantly going to open in composer mode. Then I set up all my bone structure and everything. Once I'm happy with it, I can take a screenshot of it. So I will get my own bone structure. So it's just opening up. Here we go. Once he opens up in composer mode. That's a good question. There we go. So once he's open in here, right, down the bottom here, you've got this little icon, which will take a snapshot. So if I click that, sorry, I have to move everything around because I've got so many screens open, and you'll see I get the create custom rig GUI, right? These are the bones in the character currently. If I hit, that's in the template character. If I hit capture, then what it will do is it will capture my character with its bone structure, okay? Why has it disappeared? It's so frustrating because I've got so many windows open because of the live feed.
Yeah, it shouldn't disappear.
No, it probably hasn't disappeared. It's probably layered under something.
I see it right now on your screen right now.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
Yeah.
Yep. Sorry, it's because of the live stream. I've got 3 other windows open and I have to constantly move them so I can see what the heck I'm doing. All right, so there's my rig of my character. What I tend to do is to reduce my bone size to the minimum, which is 0.5, and save it. And then, there we go. And then when I take my character back into stage mode, and if I click on, here we go back into stage mode. Then when I click on my, here we go. Then when I click on my bone editor now, I will get my little character with my bone rig. So there you go. That's the answer to that one.
Bravo. All right. Next one from Robin. We have about 9 minutes left here, guys.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Sorry, we cut it short, guys, but we've both got a meeting we've got to get to.
Robin asked, do we have something for back-facing characters for a 3D crowd effect?
Well, we covered before about doing a backwards character. If I wanted to do a backwards, like if I want to do a crowd effect, I would simply create a single PNG or vector of the back of everybody's heads, put it in as a layer, add some bones to it if I want to get some movement out of it. That's the easiest way of doing that.
I'm just thinking, is there anything like that in the marketplace or the content store? Would you be,
I don't think
have you seen anything like that? No?
No, I've never seen anything like it. Most people only work with forward-facing characters. And the problem is, even if I, like as somebody who was always in the marketplace, even if I created a back crowd effect, then people would go, we want them dressed differently. We want different. There would never be what everybody wants.
Okay, question from Anonymous here. How can I animate any object along a path like Adobe Animate? Is it possible to animate an object follow along a path? This is basically path animation, I think he's talking about, which I don't believe we have that in Cartoon Animator, do we?
No.
It generates an automatic path for you, but we don't have a path follow feature yet. That's been an iClone for ages. I'm not sure why we haven't implemented it into Cartoon Animator, but that should be coming up. I would hope. That's a pretty useful feature in a lot of ways. I think that's.
I don't know. I've never found a need for it, but maybe once it was there, I'd find a use for it.
Okay, yeah, it's maybe a bit more useful in a 3D environment, exactly. But yeah, I'll look into that for sure. I see Jane character in the image view tab.
I'm not sure.
Okay, so Don is. I think he's looking in maybe writing in the chat window. He thought he was writing in the chat window. So this is the Q&A.
Oh, okay, cool. Go, Tanya.
All right. Will we have a new update for CTA 5? This question's from Robin. Yes. When can we expect it, and what features can we expect?
No.
Yeah. So
the answer is yes. We're having an update. No, I don't know when. Look, I'm gonna suspect it'll be this year, and that is not an official thing. I don't have any information. But I mean, I would expect it'll be this year, later this year. What features can we expect? I'm not allowed to tell you, and I so badly want to tell you, and I'm not allowed to tell you because if I get very excited, but I can't tell you. But look, I absolutely promise that the next big feature, or tool that's coming to Cartoon Animator, will let you do all new things, and the skill level that you have with Cartoon Animator doesn't matter. Even if you've only just picked it up and put it out of the box, you can work with this new feature straight away. It's not something that you need years of experience with, and it's brilliant.
Yeah, and it'll be before the end of this year for sure.
I think so.
We can say that for sure. Yeah. That'll be 5.2.
Yeah.
Question from Andy. We make employee training videos for a couple of the largest companies in the world, and they don't want the exaggerated cartoon animations. So there is the demand for less than over-the-top animations. Okay, yeah, I think Andy, that's totally fine.
Yeah. So Andy, with that, there are like we've got like, as a developer myself, I work with really cartoony characters. That's just how I draw. That's what I do. But we've got guys in the marketplace who create characters that are much more designed to be for things like corporate videos, training videos, explainer videos, things like that. We've got, if you go to the marketplace and have a look, there's so many different artists out there, so many different styles of characters. It just depends. My problem is, even if I try to draw a character that looks quite serious, it ends up a cartoon. It's just how I draw. I can't help it.
Okay, I'm going to throw, actually, I can't link this in the chat window.
That's okay. Don, do me a favor. Send me an email, because I'm not going to keep that email now. It'll be gone in the chat window. So please send me an email to Garry Pye at reallusion.com. That's Garry Pye, Pye at reallusion.com. And I will get you an answer to that. You've got to give me 24 hours though, because I'm not going to be back on the server.
All right, I just put a link in the chat window, a quick YouTube link. This is a tutorial for basically how you can import 3D animations into Cartoon Animator. So we have a ton, like thousands and thousands of 3D motions. A lot of them are for professional uses and everything like that. And this is basically how you can import them into the 2D software. Really quick and simple process using Motion Link. This is from iClone to Cartoon Animator. And there's also stuff you can purchase from the Actor Core as well. So we can get into that more later. But
amazing too.
Yeah. Nazir, best software for cartoon voice changer.
I don't use a voice changer, but I do use AI voices. And there's one called Replica Studios, which is amazing. Their choice of voices is phenomenal. As a matter of fact, if you've been watching the whole webinar, at the very start of it, the character of Claire, when she goes, "Hi, my name's Claire," that was done with the AI voice from Replica Studios. And yeah, really, really good. But I don't have any software for voice changing. It's not something I use.
All right, I put a link in the chat window for Replica Studios if you guys want to check it out. There's some certain limited, I think 30 minutes of, 30 minutes? I forget, of free voices, and then you can pay after that. But
are you
really
talking about Replica Studios?
Yeah, I put the link in the chat for everyone.
I think they've stopped the free bit. I looked at it the other day and I couldn't find it. I think they've stopped it.
Oh, okay. I'm not aware of that. Check it out anyways. It's awesome AI voices. Okay, 2 more questions. We can work through this.
Oh no, how good's this?
I know, right on. Anonymous asks, will the update to Cartoon Animator 5 be free? When will we have the option to get it? So I guess just to clarify here, every version of Cartoon Animator we release, version 3, version 4, there's basically one version that comes out every 4 years, I would say, 3 or 4 years. Within that version, all of the updates are completely free. So for example, we just launched version 5 last year, and we're in version 1 or 5.1 now, and we're going to be 5.2 before the end of this year. And it basically goes up to like 5.4, 5.5 sometimes. And whole bunch of new features are added. So those features are all completely free. And then when you want to update to 6 in like another few years or something like that, basically you get a special upgrade price on your account when you log in. So just make sure you log into your account before you go shopping through all the stuff, and it automatically applies those discounts to your account.
But I'd say it'll be this year. I reckon we'll get it this year.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely Q4. Question from Shy Will, extreme perspectives, like pointing a finger at the camera. Yep, that can be done.
Easy. If I wanted to do this, if I wanted the character pointing at the finger like this, I'd just make it one giant sprite, and I would have it like, if I needed to do that, I'd have the character here, and the arm and the finger pointing like that would be a completely separate prop, all on its own, with its own bones in it. If you want just a single prop, it wouldn't be all rigged with fingers. It'd just be a single prop like that, drawn up, that I could do it. Yeah, that's easy. Again, think outside the box.
Awesome. We're perfect. We basically finished right on time.
How good is that?
Yeah, excellent. Didn't expect that. Sometimes things just come together.
It's not, well, I don't want to run too far over if you can help it.
Yeah, just as a reminder, if you guys missed anything, we have it recorded on YouTube. We're going to be posting it and sending you guys a link to the YouTube video. This will be a very popular webinar, I'm sure about that. So thank you so much, everyone, for being with us. We really appreciate you joining with us here on today's webinar. And make sure you fill out that survey, give us your feedback, and we'll give you that 10% discount for the content store. And thank you so much to Garry for showing us all the cool tips and tricks you have there. And I think
I had a blast. I've been looking forward to this one. I had a blast. And if the feedback is good, if people enjoyed what we did, if we get enough hits on YouTube that it was popular, I'd love to do more of the Ask a Pro, because I think there's just so many little things that we can teach people that really enhance their videos.
Yeah, absolutely. Garry and I have to whip on over to a meeting in just a couple minutes here. So thanks. Yeah, I get to see all the new 5.2 stuff before you guys. Anyways, thanks again, everyone, for being with us here. We're going to say adios to you. We'll leave you with that, and we'll see you in the next webinar. Thanks,
Thank you very much. Bye.